warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nur Arina. I'm from English Education Department at State University of West Sulawesi, especially in Class B 2018. In this moment, I'm gonna share to you about English specific purposes during this middle semester as my mid project from my best lecturer. His name is Mr. Adi Isma S.Pd. M.Pd. Well, in the second meeting, we talk about the origins of ESP. There are three main reasons common to the emergence of ESP. The first is the demands of a brave new world. English becomes the accepted language of technology and international trade. It creates a new generation of learners who knows specifically why they are learning the language. The second is a revolution in linguistics. The English is needed by certain groups of learners can be identified by analyzing the linguistic characteristics of their specialist field of work or study. The third is focus on the learner. Learners are seen as having different needs and interests, which will have an important influence on their motivation to learn, therefore on their learning effectiveness. Well, on the third meeting, we talk about the development of ESP. From its early beginnings in the 19th-16th century, ESP has undergone three main phases of development. It is now in a fourth phase, with a fifth phase starting to emerge. The first is the concept of spatial language is register analysis. In linguistics, a register is a variety of language used for a particular purpose or in a particular social setting. Register analysis is an analysis of grammatical and lexical features of the language used for a particular purpose or in a particular social setting. This concept comes from the principle of ESP that English of a specific science differs from each other in terms of its grammatical and lexical features of the registers. The second is beyond the sentence is rhetorical or discourse analysis. In this stage, the second phase of development shifts attention to the level above the sentence, as ESP become closely involved with the emerging field of discourse or rhetorical analysis. It focuses to understand how sentences were combined in discourse to produce meaning. The third phase is target situation analysis. According to Hutchinson and Waters, 1987, target situation analysis was aimed to take students' existing knowledge and setting it on a more scientific basis by establishing procedures for relating language analysis more closely to learners' reasons for learning. In ESP course, there will be a process of knowing students' purpose to learn English known as need analysis or target situation analysis. Target situation analysis will lead the teacher to form a syllabus. The fourth phase is skill and strategies. In this stage, we concern to the two things: thinking process underlying language use and focused on underlying interpretative strategies. The fifth phase is, or the last phase, is a learning-centered approach. ESP concerned with language learning rather than language use. There are some main points that to be main focus in this stage. The first is, this is anyhow not the main concern of ESP, since describing and exemplifying what people do with language will not automatically enable someone to learn it. The second is, therefore, a valid approach to ESP must be based on an understanding of the process of the language learning. And in the fourth meeting, we talk about course design. Course design is a process and methodology for creating a quality learning environment and experience for students. The focus of this course design is to bring together optimal learning experience for students in an environment that supports and values learning and intellectual development. Language description. Therefore, important to understand the main features of each of these descriptions in order to consider how they can be used most appropriately in ESP courses. We can identify 6 main stages of development. The first is classical or traditional grammar. Descriptions of English and other languages were based on the grammars of the classical languages, Greek and Latin. These descriptions were based on an analysis of the role played by each word in the sentence. Languages were described in this way because the classical language were case-based language where the grammatical function of each word in the sentence was made apparent by the use of appropriate inflections. The second is structural linguistics. This method of linguistic analysis led in English language teaching to the development of the substitution table as a typical means of explaining in grammatical patterns. The very simplicity of the structural language description entails that there are large areas of language use that it cannot explain. The third is transformal information generative or TG grammar. In the early stages of its development, ESP put most emphasis on describing the performance needed for communication in the target situation and paid little attention to the competence underlying it. The fourth is language variation and register analysis. The language varies based on context it is used. Sometimes it can be formal or informal and written or spoken. The text below shows 2 different styles with same purpose. The first text is a transcript of a demonstration in the using the let, while the second text is the instructions from the manual. So the fourth is functional or national grammar. Functional is concerned with social behavior and the speaker or writer's statement of intent, such as advising, threatening, describing, and etc. while it deals with reflections of the human's mind or thoughts, and thus divides language such as time, numbers, genders, location, and etc. This emerged in the 19th, 17th century when formal equivalence for learning various languages was difficult because the structures of formal language showed considerable variations. And the next is discourse or rhetorical analysis. This stage deals with how the meaning between sentences is generated. The important thing is the context of the languages. So, in the fifth meeting, we talk about theories of learning. The first is behaviorism. Behaviorism is learning as a habit formation. The behaviorism learning theory is the idea that how a student behaves is based on their interaction with their environment. It suggests that behaviors are influenced and learned from external forces rather than internal forces. The second is mentalism, thinking as rule-governed activity. Having established thinking as an activity governed by rules, it is a short step. The conclusion is that learning doesn't form a habit but to derive rules, a process by which individuals' experiences are used to formulate hypotheses which are then tested and modified by subsequent experiences. The third is cognitive code. Learners as thinking beings. The cognitive code view of learning seems to answer many theories and problems. This makes students think and they place it at the center of the learning process. By emphasizing that learning will only occur when the material available for study is meaningful to students. Well, in the sixth meeting, we talk about target need analysis. The first, we talk about necessities. Necessities are about what the learners has to know in order to function effectively in the target situation. In other words, necessities also means the need of someone to be success in his or her business. Moreover, according to Ulrich 1982 quote in West 1994, wants is the skills which a student sees as being relevant to himself or herself. The second is lacks. Lack is the difference between the student's present competence and the desired competence. Alright, 1982 quote in West 1994. Moreover, based on English for specific purpose book, lack is about what the learner knows already, so that the teacher or the facilitator can decide which of the necessities the learners lack. And the third is wants. According to Alright, 1982, wants is those needs on which students put a higher priority in the available limited time. Moreover, according to Hodgkinson and Waters 1987, definition of wants is perceived of subjective needs of learners. Learning needs analysis. Learning need is what the students need to do in order to learn, using our analogy of the ESP course as a journey. What we have done so far is consider the starting point or leg, and the destination or necessities, and where the destination should be wants. Moreover, the whole ESP process is concerned not with knowing or doing, but with learning. Well, in the 7th meeting, or in the last meeting, we talk about approaches to course design. Course design is the process by which the raw data about our learning need is interpreted in order to produce an integrated series of teaching learning experiences. The aim of course design is to lead the learner to a particular state of knowledge. There are probably many different approaches to ESP course design, as there are course designers. However, we can identify 3 main types of course design, which are language-centered course design, skill-centered course design, and learning-centered approach. So the first is language-centered course design. This is the simplest and probably the most familiar type of course design for English teachers. The language-centered course design process aims to illustrate the direct possible relationship between the target situation analysis and the ESP course content. The second is skill-centered course design, as is a skill-centered approach is based on 2 basic principles, namely theoretical and pragmatic. The basic theoretical hypothesis is that underpinning the behavior of any language are certain skills and strategies which are used by learners to generate or understand discourse. The third is learning-centered approach. A learner-centered approach is based on the principle that learning is determined entirely by students. As teachers, we can influence what we teach, but what learners learn is determined by the learner himself. Learning is seen as a process in which learners use the knowledge or skills they have to understand the new information flows. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much for your nice attention. Glad to sharing with you. But don't forget like, share, comment, and subscribe. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi